In the midst of our day-to-day lives, sometimes odd things pop up to break the routine. These could be things like unexpected encounters and strange events, but in some cases, it could be something as simple as a piece of paper. On July 29th, 2019, a user on the WTF subreddit made a strange post titled, "This note wrapped in plastic I found in the woods while hiking." The picture he included shows a piece of paper with a word salad typed all over it. None of the sentences make much sense, and it is filled with grammatical errors and oddly placed punctuation and underlines. The post gained a bit of traction, with most of the other people being equally confused by this, but people didn't pay much mind to it, and just wrote it off as the work of someone with a mental illness. That is, until a few months later, more notes just like this one started popping up in other subreddits from people who also claimed they found these outside in the woods and at local parks. At the time, this wasn't some hugely talked about mystery, so the sudden influx of notes came as a surprise to everyone. But things were just getting started. Eventually, these notes weren't just found outside on nature trails, but they started making their way indoors. One user found one of these notes inside an Aleve medicine bottle, someone else found one in a box of brownie mix, and yet another found one inside another food product. Whatever these were, they were increasing in frequency and finding their way into food items. Some of these were even found inside of items that had been sealed. Now, everyone was interested in getting to the bottom of this, and that started with finding out where this was happening. It was quickly discovered that most of these notes were found in or close to the Schuylkill County of Pennsylvania. This marked the beginning of the mystery of the Schuylkill notes, which is still ongoing to this day. It wasn't long before this started being covered by some other news sites. On April 16th, 2020, ColeSpeaker.com reported on this, describing cases of people finding these cryptic notes inside of food products. They mentioned the notes appeared to be mainly in Schuylkill County, with the notes they received reports from including Pottsville, Tamaqua, and Ashland. Later that year, the story was also picked up by Coleridge Canary and Horror Report. As the story picked up, so did Reddit posts from Pennsylvania residents claiming to have found one of these notes. For the next couple years, it became somewhat common to see posts from people reporting these notes being found in food products and along nature trails. Near the end of 2023, this took a turn from being a strange internet mystery to actually becoming part of a legal investigation when the story got picked up by the Pennsylvania news site's PA homepage. In the report, a man from Luzerne County, which borders Schuylkill, was being interviewed about finding one of these notes inside a box of Lucky Charms cereal.
I open up the bag like this, so I poured it out in my bowl, and out comes this paper that was all folded up just like this. Probably not going to eat it. I don't know what's inside the cereal, or if this note was laced with anything. You know, it's not the note that really bothers me. It's just these notes are found inside food, like kids food.
Just like a couple of other cases reported, this man said the note was actually found inside the sealed part of the cereal, suggesting this may have been done in the factory this was produced. Tampering with food like this is no joke. It's actually a federal crime. That's why I put the man and the PA homepage investigative team contacted the FBI regarding this. The next day, the same news site made an update report informing us that 2 congressmen have also gotten involved and said they are staying in touch with the FBI and FDA regarding this. For lack of a better word, shit just got real. In the midst of all the excitement, some Reddit detectives got involved in the mystery. On August 31st, 2023, a subreddit called Schuylkill Schizo Notes was created, but because of the controversial name, a couple weeks later they moved to a new subreddit simply called Schuylkill Notes. Shortly after this community was created, it became flooded with a collection of notes found in Pennsylvania, along with people chiming in with their own theories. At the time of writing the script for this video, I've read every single post on both of these subreddits, but seeing as new posts are made every day, by the time this video is up, I'm sure there will be a lot more to look through. The earliest Reddit post including this note that I initially found was one from 2019 that I included at the beginning of this video. But there are some appearances of this note that likely occurred years prior to this that we will get to later. I spoke to the user that wrote this post, and oddly enough, this one came from Virginia, not Pennsylvania. When investigating a cryptic note like this one, of course, the first place most will begin is trying to decipher it. By looking at these notes, it's clear that there isn't any complex cipher going on here. It's just a straightforward message with most of the words being abbreviated and punctuated strangely. So it isn't too difficult to quote-unquote decipher the code. I also want to note that although these notes appear to be identical at first glance, they're actually not. They are incredibly similar, but upon closer inspection, they each have very slight differences to them. For the most part, however, they're all pretty similar. A lot of the note analysis on the subreddit seems to be done through people running this through AI, so that's what I decided to do. First, I took the raw text from the 2019 notes and asked ChatGPT to analyze that. It told me that the message was a convoluted mixture of conspiracy theories mentioning secret societies, historical figures, celebrities, and religious leaders. Furthermore, it touches on some sort of hidden history surrounding ancient races and cultures. After this, I asked ChatGPT to rewrite the message, but this time, format all the abbreviations into full words and correct any grammatical errors so we could get a message that was easier to read. After it spit this out, I asked ChatGPT to analyze our newly formatted message, and it more or less said the same thing. Now, I'm not going to sit here and analyze the hodgepodge of conspiracy theories in here, because quite frankly, it's all baloney. I don't think diving too deeply into this stuff is going to help much to understanding the origin of these notes. What is clear from all of this is that we're likely dealing with the work of someone with a mental illness, most likely untreated schizophrenia. A user on the Schuylkill Notes subreddit mentioned that he suffers from psychosis from time to time, and says this writing reminds him of the stuff he would write during an episode. Furthermore, there are other writings available online from other confirmed people with schizophrenia that share a striking similarity to this in the way they are formatted and filled with nonsense. The author of these notes having some sort of mental illness isn't really something that is disputed at this point. For the most part, I think that's the main takeaway from the note itself, and we'll have to get a bit more creative if we want to find the actual origin of it. Before we dive into some of the theories that have been floating around, we need to address something important to keep in mind. Copycats. As this mystery started gaining more traction, more notes started being posted to Reddit. Like I said before, this has been going on since at least 2019, but most of these reports really started to pick up in 2023. I've saved and analyzed over 50 notes, and over 60% of them were posted in 2023. Now I'm sure this is partially because before this mystery became known, people were less likely to report these notes since they didn't think much of them. But it's almost certainly the case that some of these are also copycats from people who want to feed into the mystery. It's impossible to tell which of these are genuine and which are copies, but there are some methods we can use to at least get an idea of which ones to be suspicious of. A user on the Schuylkill Notes subreddit was kind enough to create a map showing the locations of all the Schuylkill Note reports they were able to gather. Most of these are of course in Pennsylvania, but there are a few outliers that are way outside of PA. I think it's fair to at least be suspicious of these. Another possible method to use is the format of the notes. If we look at them chronologically, we can see that all the earlier notes had the word lies printed in the two left corners of the paper. This detail seems to have been omitted at around the beginning of 2021. There are some later notes discovered that have this detail again, which might indicate they are copycats. Another big thing to look for is duplicate notes. Like I mentioned before, at first glance, these notes appear to be identical, but they actually have subtle differences among almost all of them. A copycat may not have noticed this and just assumed they were all the same, so in their copy, it should be identical to a note that was already discovered. I analyzed all of the 50 plus notes I collected for similarities, and they all did have subtle differences, except for a few. About 20% of these were exact duplicates of a previous note, with not a single change. One of these was even a duplicate with the older format I talked about a moment ago. The final method we can use to figure out which notes to be suspicious of would be the notes that seem a bit too convenient to have been found. In most of these reports, the notes were relatively spread out, and most people didn't find more than one or two in a single location. There are a couple exceptions to this, however. 4 Reddit posts that stuck out to me were ones where people found a lot of notes in one location. These were the 4 locations in question, where the total number of reported notes equaled 5, 10, 4, and 5. If you look at the distance between these areas on Google Maps, you'll see that someone could travel to each of these locations in less than an hour. Also note that 2 of these locations contain duplicates. Compare that to some of the other locations where less notes were found, and it would take several hours to make it to all of those locations. This doesn't necessarily mean these are copycats, but if they were, these would be ideal locations to do it. And that applies to all of this, by the way. None of these methods guarantee that a note was a copycat. It is possible that whoever the genuine person leaving the notes is could have just made a few exact duplicates among the other unique notes. And it's also possible that the outdated format notes, which were found later, could have also been from the genuine note leaver who just wanted to reuse that format for some reason. There's no guarantee. It's just to give a general idea of which notes to at least be a little suspicious of. With that out of the way, let's dive into a few theories. One of the earlier ideas brought up was that this might be part of some sort of ARG or movie promotion gimmick. This is extremely unlikely. This has been going on for years with no serious developments leading to anything other than these notes. You'd think in that amount of time, an ARG or movie promotion would lead to something substantial. And the fact that these notes are appearing in food products pretty much takes this theory out of the question entirely. There's no way a promotion team would risk committing a federal crime for the sake of an advertising campaign. So this definitely is not it. So assuming some other person is doing this for some reason, it leads to the question of how they're doing it and how many people are involved. Because some of these notes have been reported to have been found inside of a sealed food item, a lot of people think whoever is behind this could be a factory worker. An article on Skeptical Inquirer written by J.D. Sword actually looks into this possibility. He believes this to be unlikely because, based on the geography and the fact that not all of these food products were from the same manufacturer, it wouldn't make sense for all of these to come from the same facility. So this could only really be the case if there are multiple people involved, all working at different facilities. Sword says this probably is not the case because warehouse workers are monitored very closely and put on tight schedules. So being able to pull this off for this long while remaining unnoticed would be nearly impossible. He goes on to say that even the possibility of this being the work of someone who just delivers the products is also unlikely, because usually these products are delivered on pallets wrapped in plastic. With all that in mind, it is most likely the case that these are being placed in the products after the merchandise reaches the shelves. I agree with him here. This is further backed up by a Reddit post on the Schuylkill Notes subreddit, where someone mentioned that their grandmother actually noticed someone slip one of these notes into her purse once. I also agree with JD Sword when he says that there's most likely only one person at work here, not multiple. This has been going on for years, and so far, no one has caught the person in the act. If there were several people involved in this, it would be much more difficult for all of them to remain undetected for so long. You might be asking, if it wasn't done in a factory, then how did the notes make it into sealed products? Well, the notes being found in sealed products wasn't actually all that common. Of all the posts they found reporting finding these notes inside of food products, only 5 of them claimed it was inside of a seal. And for a lot of those, it was unclear if they meant the note was inside the actual sealed plastic, or if they simply meant the cardboard box which contained the food had never been opened before. And it's easy to get one of the notes into a box of food while leaving it untampered. On the same Skeptical Inquirer article I mentioned before, JD Sword tested out a method of getting a note into a box of Lunchables while leaving it untampered, and it was very simply done by pitching the corners of the box and using a flat object to push the note through. In the Horror Report article from 2020, they even have a report from someone who said the note they found was tucked into a box of cookies underneath a small piece of torn cardboard, implying that this was clearly done at the store, not a factory. So at this point, what we can be relatively confident about is that the person doing this is likely someone with a mental illness who is working alone and likely is not placing these notes at a factory. But we're still missing how this all started. There are a lot of posts on Reddit that try to connect the conspiracies in these notes to the work of other well-known conspiracy theorists, but I don't think any of that stuff is too solid. This note is just a huge mixture of a bunch of conspiracy theories with no real structure to it. I'm sure if you really tried, you could connect this to 1,000 different conspiracy theories, but that won't get us anywhere. We need something more conclusive. The answer to this might be going further back. Near the beginning of this video, I mentioned one of the earliest Reddit posts including this note was posted in 2019, but that might not be the case. In September of 2023, a user on the Schuylkill Notes subreddit named Hair Deodorant made an interesting discovery that is our biggest lead yet. He found a Reddit post from 2015 that includes an image of one of the Schuylkill Notes. This would make it the earliest one we have found so far. The post mentioned that they found a note along with a pamphlet on the floor of a changing room. This is the note. It's clearly a Schuylkill Note, and what's interesting is that you can see the writing was slightly more coherent from the rest of the notes. The pamphlet included with the note was advertising a seminar that would be taking place at a Masonic lodge in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. Sunbury is in Northumberland County, which is right next to Schuylkill. In an article Hair Deodorant linked about the seminar, the speaker spoke about how he believed that we are all entering end times, and that the second coming of Christ could happen at any moment. I contacted the speaker of the seminar and included pictures of the notes and pamphlet. He said he recognized the pamphlet, but has never seen the notes and knows nothing about it. I also contacted the lodge, but received no response. I asked all of you to please not try to contact these people, as all you're going to do is annoy them. Don't be that person. Now, I don't think this entire group is in on the whole Schuylkill Notes phenomenon, or anything like that. I still confidently believe that whoever is doing this is working alone. But these types of groups can sometimes attract people that aren't all there in the head. That's not to knock these groups at all, but I'm just telling it how it is. Because of the fact that the earliest note we know of was found with this pamphlet near Schuylkill County is pretty huge. It's definitely possible that whoever is leaving these notes was someone who attended the lodge, or who was at least interested in it. As far as I'm concerned, this is the most solid lead we have right now. We have a lot of information right now, but this is just the beginning. As time goes on, I'm sure much more is going to be revealed, and I look forward to seeing where this goes next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the flip side.